Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I just thought I'd pop by and create another little video. This is going to just be a short video for a quick card. But just before I got onto the card, I just thought I'd show you what I created recently for a pre-recorded workshop. So this is available as a pre-recorded workshop, and you create the journal spread, and it's workshop 47. Workshop 47, and it's £15. And the workshop, which I'm looking up because, you know, it's harder to think of the names than anything else, but it's called Vintage Indulgence Journal Pages, workshop 47, and it's £15. So I thought I'd just show that first before I got onto my card. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I just love the detail in the pages, and you can see I just love how they've turned out. So if you'd like to join me, you can email me, Tracy at craft-addicts.co.uk. I will add the email to my YouTube video anyway, in the details, in the description. So I just thought I'd show that. I have actually got 47 videos that are available. And if you join my group, that gives all the details. We'll just move this out of the way. And if you want to know the group on Facebook, if I go to Facebook on my app, if I put in Tracy Evans, you can find Tracy Evans, Craft Addicts, Create, Share and Inspire. And that's what we hopefully do. And in there you can see all my workshops advertised. You can see everybody else's inspiration as well from my workshops, and we all share different creative projects using my stamp sets. So if you'd like to join us, you can just request to join the group off your own back. We don't usually do invites, so if you want to request to join, that's great. So I just thought I'd show that. I'll just put that on one side, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple card. Just nothing too complicated today. I just thought I'd pop by because it's reasonably late in the evening. Well, it's early evening on Tuesday, and I just thought I'd get this ready for Wednesday. So I thought I'd do something, a nice simple video. So I'm using a piece of white smooth card, 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and I've created a mat that's a quarter of an inch slightly bigger. So if you want to grab yourselves a brew and listen to me chatting away, or if you want to join along and be creative with me, I'm using my brayer, and I'm using some fresco finish paints. I might use heavy cream, I haven't decided yet, but I'm using cerise because I haven't used this colour for a while, and sometimes I do like to do projects in different colours. I just think it makes the projects look totally different. So what I'm going to do is just do a nice simple background, and what I'm doing is I'm starting with some of the paint, the cerise, and what I'm doing is I'm actually brayering that out so it covers my brayer evenly. So I'm just brayering that out. Now I've got quite a few layers of paint on my brayer from a workshop, but just so it's reasonably evened out, so I'm just going to add that braid background, and as you can see, I'm sort of flicking it onto that background. I'm picking it up off the craft sheet and then flicking it, so it's sort of, I'm going over that background continually. I'm not going over once, I'm picking up the colour, I'm going over several times, because what that does, it not only adds the paint layers, it adds texture. So what I'm going to do now, most of that paint is mopped up, but I'm just going to give it a clean because I now want to use the cream paint, and I don't want to end up with it's going to be light pink. I physically want the cream paint. So I'm just wiping my brayer. We'll just get a little piece of kitchen roll, just so that we can brayer that off. You can brayer onto a separate piece of card, but there's not very much paint on there anyway. But I'm just cleaning it a little bit because I actually want this heavy cream paint. If you want to use white, that's entirely up to you. I do like using cream sometimes because it sort of gives a shabby look. And I'm just braying that cream just over the top, and I'm just flicking. As I roll the brayer, I don't roll it straight like that, I just sort of flick, just so that you get this kind of texture. Hopefully you can see that. You can see a little bit of texture in the background. So what I'm going to do, let me see if it makes any difference with that light. Let me just see if you can see the texture. Yes, you can see the texture. Let's see if it goes up one more. No, it doesn't. Oh. Just so you can see that texture on the card. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to layer a little bit more of the pink. And if you notice, I clean that up so that I don't end up with just a pale pink, because the cream and the pink matte sort of blend together. I don't want them to blend together. I want them to layer on top. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of the pink and this time I'm going to use a light touch, a very light touch. And I'm just building that layer up. So it's just building light layers up. So really you need some scrap card on the side so you can brayer that off onto a separate piece of card, just because it means you can create several backgrounds at the same time. And what I'm going to do now is add a little bit more cream. So all I'm doing is lightly adding layers of the paint. So I've got sort of a shabby background. Shabby as in good terms, shabby. So I quite like that background now. So just wipe up that. I tell you what, these baby wipes are soaking wet. So just wipe that up. Just move my brayer onto one side. And what I'll do is I'll just give that a little bit of a dry. Just so the layers are not too wet, just because I don't want to add too many wet layers, because I want to add some washi tape as well. And if the layers are too wet, your washi tape isn't going to stick, which seems a shame. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my Numerator stamp set 400. And I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping in the background. So I'm just going to grab a piece of cotton dry foam. Actually, I don't know whether I'm going... This is where I change my mind every 5 seconds. Just going to see if I've got what my VersaFine Clair inks look like. So I've got my VersaFine Clair here. Let's just grab a scrap of card. Let's just test what colours these look like. And I've seen the colours before, obviously, because I've used them. But sometimes you can't remember how the colour coincides with your project. So that one is that one. And this one. See, that's too purple. So we know instantly that's too purple. So what I'm going to be using is Charming Pink, which describes it itself really, Charming Pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping just to the background. Not too much. And if you want to make your background a little bit more shabby and you don't want the letters to be too perfect, take your kitchen roll and just dab the edges of your letters and numbers, and it'll just lighten the edges a little bit and shabby it up a little bit. So just dab it with your kitchen roll and it'll just remove a little bit of that ink. So what I'm going to do is just lay that here and just add that little bit of detail to the background. And this really is going to be a lovely, simple card. Nothing too complicated. She says nothing too complicated, but I've still got enough products out. So I say not complicated, which it isn't, but I get enough products out to rebuild a craft room. So it does make me laugh the way I say that. Just going to add a little bit more stamping just here on the left hand side. That's it. So it's just adding a flavour of that stamp set. Just giving that a wipe. Now, when you stamp onto a painted surface, it's no longer porous. So because it's no longer porous, it means that I need to dry or blot that ink. Because you've already added those layers of paint with the brayer, I'm no longer stamping straight onto the card, therefore it needs to be blotted, because you will get a little bit of ink off there. And it just takes a little bit of patience just to make sure that you blot that. That's nicely blotted. Just takes a few moments. And you can dry it with your heat tool if you wish, but I'm not just going to get my heat tool out at the moment. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab my washi tape. And this washi is called Horticultural Layers number 12. And just so you can see this, it's got some beautiful, come on, let's move this out of the way and see if it'll focus just on the washi tape. There we go. Just so it's not trying to focus on the background, but you can see it's got little numbers, just a little bit lower. It's got little numbers, flowers, berries, and it goes beautifully with everything. Absolutely beautifully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just roll some of that back up, and it's a perfect colour. And believe it or not, my washi tape is what inspired the colour I was going to use, because I just think sometimes you can look at a product, you can look at a page, you can look at a piece of paper, and something inspires you to create. And today it was my washi tape, and I'm not going to have any straight edges, so I'm just adding different little layers of my washi tape. And my washi tape is going to create more detail in my background. So I'm just adding that. And it doesn't matter whether your numbers are upside down, the right way up, you're creating a background. It doesn't matter. Now, if you're giving something to somebody like a canvas, or you're making them something special, and you want to make sure that it lasts a lifetime, or that it lasts up to wear and tear. I can't really say something's going to last a lifetime, but if you want to make sure that it can take some wear and tear, then just coat it in a coat of matte medium, and then it'll protect it if it's going to be handled regularly. So that's what I do with the matte medium. And also, if you cover washi tape in matte medium, then you can stamp onto it as well, once it's dry, obviously. So just adding this washi tape, just so that you can see I'm creating a background with my washi tape, just so that you can see those details. I just think that's a gorgeous washi tape. And if you want, you can add some pieces whole. You can add them whole. It seems a shame not to get that detail. So what you do is, if you don't want a straight edge, you put a straight piece down, and then next tear a little piece like so, and then put it over your straight edge, just so it breaks it up, but you still got all that detail from the washi tape. Just makes it a little bit more random. So you can just get rid of the straight edges. But I like to use every little bit of the washi if I can, like so. I just think that washi tape is just glorious, especially with that background. And I don't make much in this colour, to be honest, so it's nice to have a change. It really is. Right, let's see if we can use this scrap of paper we tested the colours on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my Through the Meadows stamp set. And I think I want to use this area here. So I'll just take my stamp set. And you all know me very well by now, most of you, that I've never got enough room on my desk because Tracy pulls everything out but the kitchen sink. There we go. So what I'm going to do is use this stamp set. And already I've dumped everything everywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of the detail. So the butterfly, I'm going to see if I can stamp it without an acrylic block and wing it. So I'm going to take this big circle, a little bit of that circle, and just see if I can wing it a little bit. We'll do that little circle in a bit. I'm now talking to myself. Great sign. So I'm just going to add this to a piece of scrap card, and I'm just going to stamp this with my fingers. Just see if I can get away without using an acrylic block. I could be pushing it a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. But you use your acrylic block because it makes it far easier. I'm just winging it without an acrylic block, as you do. And look at that. I just think that in itself could make a card. I just think it's beautiful. So just give that a blot, like so. And then what I'm going to do, I've got that many pairs of scissors out, or you wouldn't think I'd need another pair, but I keep pulling them out. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut round the butterfly. I'm actually going to cut around the circle as well. So I'm going to use this as like my background element that I'm sticking on top of my card. I'm going to use this, and I love it because you can break these stamps up so easily. Just because it's on an A4 acrylic block doesn't mean it has to be used as an A4 stamp set. It can be used just part of it. It doesn't have to be used the way I've set it out on the platform, on the carrier sheet. It doesn't have to be used that way. And when you're cutting out, just remember, give your image a blot, just to make sure that, you know, I'm used to doing this, but just to make sure that you're not going to smudge your image. So just give it a blot. I'll do that before I start messing with it any further. And I just think that in its own right is beautiful. Just going to give that a blot, just to make sure. It's just a habit I get into. And what I'm thinking, you see, is that this will go here, like so. I can still see the washi tape coming out here, so it works beautifully. I can still see me stamping here. I can see a bit of stamping here, so it all works with the background. So what I'm going to do now is adhere that, and what I'm going to do is add some black cotton. I have to check I picked the right one up, because earlier in the week I picked a polyester thread up, cotton thread. I nearly tore my hands because it was so tough. It wasn't an actual cotton thread so that I could easily tear it. Oh, that teaches me for not looking. So I'm just going to untangle it and just messy it up a little bit, and just so that some of that cotton fibre sticks out. Let's stretch it out a little bit more, just so we can see it. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of adhesive just underneath that cotton, just so that when I place the butterfly down, it catches on that adhesive. So just add that. We're just going to add that here, and we're going to add some more of the pink washi on the top as well. So we'll see a little bit more of that pink washi. You need to hold this down because you've got those cotton fibres behind. You won't see it it won't stick, sorry. It won't stick because it's got that texture of the cotton fibres. That's all. So you just need to make sure that you hold that down. Right, so what I want to do now, let's grab my Inktense pencil. So we're just going to make this pop a little bit more. So we're just going to add a little bit of Inktense pencil just around, which adds to the fun because you've got all that cotton in the way. But hey, I like to make it fun for you. So just drawing around that circle, just so it gives it a little bit more dimension. And let's just draw around some of the butterfly as well, just to add a little bit of shading. This is just a grey Inktense pencil. You can use your pastel pencils, anything you want. You can even use Distress Oxide ink to get your shading, so you don't have to have the Inktense pencil. Just pick up a little bit of water, and what I'm going to do is just blend a little bit of that out. I am going to add another butterfly on the top. That's why I'm doing the shading now, so that when I add the butterfly on top, I'm not trying to work around that dimensional butterfly. It means it's a little bit easier for me. So just adding that shading just around the circle, just to make it pop a little bit more. There we go. It just makes the butterfly pop a little bit. In real life, you can really see it. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, well, first of all, let's wipe that little bit of water up. And what we're going to do now is stamp another butterfly. So we need another scrap of card. So we'll just grab that. I've got so many pieces of scrap card, so I'm making sure I use them. And what I'm going to do is stamp that lovely butterfly once again. Just stamp that butterfly once again. I just think this is a fab stamp just on its own, never mind anything else. So just stamp that butterfly. And I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I will use some of the other circles as well. Just give that a blot. And then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of colour with my Polychromo pencils. So I'm just using a couple of pinks. Any pinks will be fine. And I'm using a nice sharp pencil, just because it means I can lay that pigment down nice and easily. I just find it easier to lay the pigment down with a sharp pencil. And I also find that with this butterfly, you don't really need to add much colour before it's brought to life, before it really works. Obviously, you would spend a lot more time colouring than I do. But I don't want you to just watch me colouring. What I'm going to do is add a little bit more intensity, just with a darker pink. And I'm just using a flicking motion because it just works with this butterfly body. So I'm using a flicking motion and working in the formation of the butterfly. And I'll just add a little bit more pigment just around the edges, just a little bit more depth, just around those edges. And you really don't need to colour it much before it starts to look good, before you bring it alive. That's absolutely fine. And it just brings it alive, even with just a couple of layers of colour. So we'll cut this butterfly out just to give us our dimension. And I'm not bothering to cut the antennae out because I'm going to use a pen nib. so I'm not bothering with the antennae. It's entirely up to you if you bother with that. So just cut this butterfly out, and it's really easy to cut out as well. It would actually look good layering embossing powders down onto your craft sheet, making a puddle, and then stamping your butterfly into the puddle of embossing powder. It'd look lovely for that as well, because you could add a bit of texture to the body. That might be for another day. I'm always thinking about 25 different things at once. So just cut that out. Like so. Nice and easy to cut out, and I've blotted it so I'm not going to smudge anything. And just so that you can see that, just so that you can see a little bit more of the detail. And you could add some glossy accents as well if you wanted to add glossy accents. Just going to add that butterfly. Don't want to stick the whole thing down, just so that I can keep some of the wings slightly up, just so it's got a little bit of dimension. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a pen nib, just so that it's got time to dry before we add it to the black layer of card. The little box my friend made for me, and I put my pen nibs in there. So just going to add that pen nib just to the butterfly's body. I always end up touching it and then moving it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to take the same stamp set, and I'm going to take a couple of these circles. I am circle mad. You'll probably see more circles from me. I'm just mad on circles. So just place that down. Like so. So easy to stamp. So easy. Just blot those. And we'll just cut those circles out. What I'm going to do is I'm adding these circles like an embellishment. Just to add an embellishment in a nice, simple way. And I like it because these circles have got details in them, got little numbers in them and things. So it's a nice little detail to add. I'm going to add one there, like so. Just so that it continues that flow of the design. Then we've got this little one, which in this light I can't tell whether it's upside down. Let's look at that in the camera. You can see the numbers. It's quite a tiny circle and it's got numbers in there. I'm going to add that here, like so. I'll just let them dry and set a little bit before I add any shading. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit more of this beautiful washi. Oh, that was a good tear, Tracy. I tore about 1 centimetre off then. Just start it off with my scissors. I'm just going to add little bits of washi just to my background. Just to the background of these circles, just to give it a little bit more detail. I don't want to cover up all the detail, but I do want to add a little bit of this washi. A little bit here, just so it brings the washi from the background to the foreground. And I just want to cut this, tear this a little bit more. Just add a little bit more, just because it brings that pink from the background into the foreground, just so that you can see that. So it brings the washi that's in the background here and here into the foreground, just so it looks like we thought about the idea. So we'll grab the stamp set again. So we've got, I think we'll just grab an acrylic block for this, just because it's a little bit easier on an acrylic block. So we've got Common in Woods, and we've got Meadows on the same stamp set. It comes on the same stamp set. Let's use the scrap of card that we've got. Do you know, when you're creating, the time goes ever so quick. So even though it's just a sentiment I'm stamping, I'm still allowing that ink to sit on there. I don't lift it up too quickly. Just place those back, because I know what I'm like. I'll end up with sentiments missing if I don't place them back. And just give that a blot, just so that we get into good habits. Get my bigger scissors just for cutting the sentiment out, because it's a lot easier to cut a little bit straighter when you've got a longer pair of scissors. And we'll just cut the words. Put the Meadows word out. That's why I save all these bits of scrap white card. I mean, you can't save everything else. You'd need a 5-storey building. But I do save scraps of white card, because I use scraps of white card quite frequently. So we'll just place this down. And I'm not going to add any pink, because I'll add a little bit of shading behind. So I'm just going to test where I just want my sentiments to be. I'm still keeping the clusters there. It's not dotted all over the place. I'm still within that cluster, just so it's a little bit more appealing to the eye, and the eye's not flitting all over the place. So adding this one here, just a little bit under that butterfly. Let's just lift that butterfly up a little bit. That's it, just so it's a little bit under there. And then, I thought I'd stuck that down then. I was thinking I don't remember picking it up. And then just adding the Meadows, just tucked in there a little bit, so it's in with that cluster. And we'll just allow that just to stick down. And just while that's sticking a little bit, we'll just add this to black card. Just adhere that to my black card. I never checked if my little pen nib was dry. So just add that to the black card, just so that, just making sure it's all lined up. There we go. Then what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of shading. So a little bit of shading to the sentiments. I think these finishing touches are what make a piece sing. When you don't rush to do your pieces, you just add these finishing touches. It doesn't always need these finishing touches, these kind. You know, the shading is optional. I like adding the shading because I do think it adds quite a bit. to the background. Makes me happy, the shading does. So just let's blend that out. It's easier for me to turn my card to blend out the shading. Makes your eyes go funny when you're watching, so I do apologise, but it's just easier for me to shade if I can move the card. I know it makes you a little bit dizzy. So just, I'm going to add a little bit of glue behind that washi. The reason being is there's a little bit of cotton just behind that little bit of washi. So let's just add a little bit of PVA glue, just because there's a little bit of cotton behind there. Then what I'm going to do is just add some splatters of white paint. I did get the pen going before. Obviously not enough. There we go. There we've got, let's see if we can just get a little bit more, because I just want a little bit of a splatter. That's better. I know when I've got the right amount of splatter, I don't mind that it goes all over me cupboards and everywhere, you know. I like to christen me cupboards. So what I'm just going to do now is get an index clip, but just so that you can see the white splatters. Oh, I love that. Absolutely love it. So I've got this index clip. So I went a bit silent then because I was having a look at embellishments and thinking, ooh, which ones can I use? So just adding an index clip there. Now if you want, I've got these embellishments from Tim as well, but I quite like that. I mean, you could add the embellishment, but I just think it detracts from what we've got, so I'm not adding that. I quite love the fact that that all works together, so I'm quite happy with that. Then what I'm going to do is just add this to a white card blank, like so. But what I'm going to do first is just do the inside of the card. So let's move these all out of the way. Bring the inside of the card in. So we'll just leave the topper there at the moment, just while that index clip dries. And what we're going to do is just do a little bit so we've got an insert. So I'm just going to add the tiniest amount of paint. I mean a tiny amount of paint, even that's probably too much. But just a tiny amount of paint. Just that's it, you don't need no more. That's plenty. So you don't add any more. You don't want to add too much. And it should dry quite quickly. It shouldn't take too long to dry. So what I'm going to do is just take my stamp set, and it'd be predictable from me if I added the butterfly, but I'm not going to add the butterfly this time. I'm just going to add a little bit of the text because I don't want to get predictable. You would expect me to add the butterfly. So I'm just not going to add the butterfly. Just because I don't want to become too predictable. So I'm just going to blot that because we've added that to that painted layer. So we just need to make sure we blot that. Just take your time. Do 2 or 3 blots. You can dry it with your heat tool if you wish, but I'm trying not to do that while I'm doing the videos. What I'm going to do is add a little bit of washi just to the insert. You're just merely adding a suggestion of what's on the front of the card. That's all you're doing, a suggestion of it. I need it to be a little bit thinner. So I'm just layering that washi tape just on the background, just so you can see this. It's just a mere suggestion. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that to the inside of the card. Always bring in a piece of scrap paper if you can, and then you're working on the scrap paper so you've got a clean desk area. It's usually what I do is I grab a piece of scrap paper, and do you know why I'm not grabbing a piece of scrap paper? Because I've only got a couple of sheets left and I'm waiting for it to be delivered. So I'm making the most of what I've got. So just add this to your card blank. Sometimes it's better to stand up when you're adding it to your card blank, because you've got an overhead view of how you're laying it down, so it's often easier to see. And I sort of line up one side before I place the other side down. And you know, I'm really pleased with that. So there's your card finished. Nice simple card with those lovely pinks, sort of dark cerises, with the insert done as well, just so you can see the insert, and then the front, just so you can see that dimension, the shading, the cotton threads, just so you can see those. Just going to tilt it so you can see it at every angle, so you can see the textures that are involved. I think sometimes if you look at a video, it looks better than if you see the real life picture. And there's just one little touch that I want to do. This is what I'm like when I'm doing cards. When I know I'm allowed to faff a little bit, I'm terrible. I can't stop myself. But there's just one other thing I want to add. Move this out the way. Just going to ink up this B for butterfly. I do faff. I can't help myself. I'm just going to take that B. Just give that a blot. And I'm just going to cut that B out. Again, I'm just going to use it as an embellishment, just in my little cluster. Just want the little B there. Just press that down, just with my copier paper, just so I don't smudge anything. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just around that B, which again is really easy because I've got cotton threads all around, but I'm good like that. Let me just blend that out. There we go. Now I'm happy. Now I've got that B on. Yes, now I'm very happy. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you liked the finished result. And more importantly, I hope you enjoyed the process of creating the card. and maybe give it to somebody special or a friend that maybe needs a card to cheer them up. That's just the perfect card to say hello, or just popping by to drop a note to see how you're doing. I think that's the perfect card. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you have a lovely day and a lovely weekend ahead, and I shall see you all soon. Love to all. Bye for now. Bye.